All right, welcome to the Wags and Fresh podcast. We have a special episode today with our guest Dan Gallagher. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, how are you doing this lovely morning?
Doing great. Yeah, I just took my two boys out and with my wife and got some breakfast. So I'm back, and she was kind enough to give me a little break to hop on a call with you guys. So we're good to go for the next hour or so.
Okay, great. So just kind of I wanted to give everybody a little bit of my viewpoint of you. I said I've had the opportunity and the privilege to work with you for several years, a couple years back. And some of the things that kind of came through and getting to know you over the years was how driven you are. You're thoughtful. Thoughtful meaning a variety of things, not just thoughtful towards people, but sort of you think deeply into things. You're thought provoking at times. But the thing that sort of always I took away from our time working together was sort of the optimism that you had that I didn't and couldn't have in people and in life. A little bit more of a cynic, and that was something that you and I had talked about in the past. About hopefully you get to hold on to that optimism. Life can sometimes create challenges that don't allow people to stay optimistic. But that was something that I really took away from our time working together, was how much you could stay optimistic through things and towards people that I found I struggled with. So that was something I learned from you. And when I really kind of take a step back, it's really that combination of things that I see in you. You might see yourself differently, I'm sure. The drive that you have, the thoughtfulness that you have, and the optimism is really kind of the reason I think we're having this conversation today. I think that combination of things is exactly what you've done with the work that you've created. So without kind of giving too much away, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the project that you just completed that kind of brought us together today?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess from the time I was young in terms of creativity, I mean, I remember really young, I was playing with G.I. Joes for 8 hours. So my mom always was like, your imagination was kind of you were always okay to occupy yourself. You could go off and be alone for hours just entertaining yourself. So that kind of led into at a really young age, I started to draw a lot. So I got really into that. And then as I got a little older, probably in high school, I started to write a lot. And that was short stories, poems, things like that. And then around the time I got to college, a couple years into college, I'd always liked music, and just kind of naturally led to me trying to figure out how to play guitar, but more in the sense that I wanted to use the guitar to learn how to write songs and figure out how to do that. I started doing that in my early 20s. I had joined up with a couple of people and kind of started to play music out. Really around the time I got done writing my fifth or sixth song, I was playing music out at venues and stuff. And then from there, I definitely realized at that point, it's almost like you prioritize. You have so much time in your life to do certain things. And from an artistic expression standpoint, I kind of found the way I like to share my thoughts and to create things. And it was through songwriting. So I had recorded an album back in 2009. I did it myself. I worked with some people, but recorded it myself, and it was kind of a labor of love. And I learned a lot from that process. I learned a lot from I was in my friend Joe Duffy's band back then, and played other instruments. So I was not this primary songwriter. So got a lot of perspective on how to build and shape songs. And then so that was 2009. I took a break from doing anything recording wise. I mean, I was writing songs the entire time. I've always been creating along the way. But a couple of years ago, I kind of started the need to kind of want to create something, started to surface, I guess, in me. And I was trying to think of a concept. And what I started to realize when I started to group some of, started to write some of these songs was that this idea that certain songs fit into certain themes was interesting to me. And I kind of ran with it. And so the album that I made now is called The Heart, the Time, and the Pen. And essentially it's just that. It's 4 songs relating to the theme of the heart, 4 songs relating to the theme of time, and 4 to the pen. And then the last song, the title track, is called The Heart, the Time, and the Pen. And within those themes, there's underlying meanings and there's other things going on. But I really primarily wanted to create something. I have 2 young boys, Danny and Dylan. They're 5 and 2.5. And I wanted to make something for them. Like, so I just didn't want to, group a bunch of songs together and make an album. I wanted to make something that as they kind of grow, they'll be able to, the older they get at different periods of their life, they'll be able to look at it maybe differently. So I added a bunch of other things outside of just the music. In the artwork, I worked closely with my friend Bob Saya, who had designed my first album. And this time I kind of brought him the concept, had specific things I wanted to include. And I used the number 13. If you come across the album, and I'll show you where you can kind of get this, but I created a listener's guide. And in that listener's guide, it explains the concept of the album. It shares 13 correlations with this number 13, which again was a vehicle for me to express another side of creativity outside of music, so that really for my sons, as they grow, they can kind of maybe glean or learn from me about or get a little insight into me about my work ethic, maybe some planning, strategic planning, preparation, hard work, all these things, maybe a little bit about being creative. So I not only have that, but I also personalize kind of a listener's guide for them, specifically. So as you look at that, each song will have a my kind of thoughts or message to them, really straightforward, nothing too cryptic at all, just very straightforward life advice. And a lot of that has to do with some things that maybe I'm not good at, or I fell short at, or maybe some things I wish I could be, but it's really what I wish for them. So I worked really closely with Bob to do that, gave him everything I wanted to do. And then he just took it to another level and created something that I think is really, really beautiful, the way that he kind of told that story. And I think it really comes across if you have it in your hand, or even if you maybe see the digital. So I'll say this now, I guess, on Bandcamp, and it's the only place that you can really get this if you want to consume it digitally. It's Crow versus Lion. So that's crowvslion.bandcamp.com. On there, I set it up so that you can, if you want it, you could download it for free. So you can pay what you want, meaning you pay $0 or whatever you'd like. But with that comes all the artwork, the album jacket, the insert, the listener's guide, so that people can kind of really get the full scope of what I tried to create. Now I understand too that if I have it up on Spotify, iTunes, all those other places, iHeartRadio, and that will be mainly just the music, which is great too if people want to hear that, because I believe that the music itself tells a story. But I thought it would be good to mention that, this Bandcamp site, or to message me personally. I mean, my email is dangallagher1319@gmail.com. So if someone's interested in getting a physical copy, I have no problem. Send me an email and we'll work it out. But I thought it would be important to kind of share that there's kind of this other aspect of outside the music that I don't know. I don't typically come across it too much anymore. And I think that most people we're in an age where it is about, songs on playlists and downloads, which I think is fine. I think that I'm really grateful. A couple of people have actually included it on playlists, and I've been really honored and grateful. But I would love for people that maybe hear something in the music, maybe if you hear a clip of a song that we played today, or or whatever it is, if they're interested, I would love to find a way to get the physical copy, or at least the, copies of the artwork in their hand.
Yeah, and I think that anybody who does go to that site and download in quotation marks for free, please give something towards that, because I can tell you it has been a long time. John and I are on the older end of the spectrum as it relates to being associated with music, and we love the artwork, we love the concepts, and we've always been people who couldn't wait for the CD and the jacket and reading the lyrics, and that, to your point, that's sort of gone by the wayside in the digital world. So please, I think it's worth a lot of money to what the creative that you put together, and as much as sure there'll be some people that will download it for free. I think if you can give something, please do, because it's worth much more than I'm sure you're going to donate, because the amount of artwork that you put into this and the thought you put into this. So,
and I'm okay with all of it. And there's been people that have been extremely generous already. It's kind of blown me away. And people will download it for free, and it's to each his own. I honestly really just want whoever hears it, whoever gets it, for it to leave them better off than when it found it.
sure.
Found them. You know what I mean? That's really it. And I just wanted to share it and create something. And this isn't my it's not my primary source of income by any means, and so the motivation was never to make money from financial standpoint. I wanted to create something, like I said, primarily for my sons, but within that, you don't do things always for one reason. I also wanted to share it and get it out there, and so I'm happy with whatever anyone's willing to do.
Sure. And we want you to make more content, so that's why we hope that people can give what they can. So
yeah, it will help
for sure. All right. Well, I think we want to kind of jump into our conversation game today. And John, why don't you lead us off there?
So just to recap what I've heard and what I've experienced, this is by far the most complete piece of artwork I've ever seen as an album, whether it be from the title to the sections to the songs, to the relation in the songs, to the correlation to number 13, the
colors,
just the detail and thought that went into this, that I almost see this like a wing in a museum. Like you don't just walk by the pictures. You can do that if you want to, and they're beautiful and pleasing to the eye, or in this situation would be to the ear. But you could sit down on a bench and stare at a picture for hours and see things that you haven't saw before, not only in one area, but as you read the listener's guide, it shows that you could take a section and then relate that to the final song that brings it all together to get a different perspective on the section, or on how the final song connects the section. It just goes on and on and on. And I'm just really grateful to get to experience this level of thought and intention. And obviously, even the way you're talking about putting out the music, the heart behind all this is a heart that wants to serve the world with their gifts and make it a better place. And what better motivation than your kids? And then also thinking back to what you said, about what you've learned so far, I hope we all realize that we're all still kids, and we have plenty of time to put that best version of ourselves into play today and tomorrow, and for as many days as we have. Did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, to his point, I've had you sent me the album a couple weeks ago, and then I shared it with John, and I hadn't had a chance to listen to it for a couple days, a week, whatever it was. And so we actually jumped in the car to start we had already made individual notes, him and I, about what we wanted to talk about with you today. But that was the first opportunity. We just got in the car and drove and listened to the album together last night for the first time, and then made some additional notes, some other correlations. And this morning, after I dropped him off, I listened to the first 4 songs on the way home and stopped the album there. And this morning I just started on on track 5, which obviously is the beginning of the second section. And it just dawned on me right there, which was right in front of me the whole time, was how you really presented us with 3 EPs that were combined into one piece of artwork that you could decide, hey, I'm just going to listen to these 4 songs that are just related to time and just dig into that if I want to, instead of trying to figure out how they're all interconnected and all that other stuff, which is there too. But you can almost piecemeal this however you'd like. And that's what's so, I think, amazing to the both of us on how you put this together.
And that is honestly, like what you guys just said, is I'm so very grateful, because I think that you've given it almost the time and attention that I was hoping that maybe somebody would, which is like really refreshing. And there is things too that it's funny, because even in the listener's guide, there's things that, for example, the disc art. So that's a picture that my cousin Russell took years ago, and I always loved it. It's a picture of these trees, kind of redwood trees, and it's almost someone lying on the ground shooting up at these huge trees.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So when I was working with Bob, when Russell gave me the picture, there was a section of those trees that was taken out. It wasn't taken out. It just wasn't there. There wasn't trees in this one spot. So I got him to, just to John's point about kind of finding more things. There's a lot of things that I kind of kept, I kept more to the vest. So there's a little bit more, which is nice to some respect. You know, I was very open and honest, and kind of, I felt like everything about the music, everything about what I was trying to do was transparent, because it was for my boys. So I wasn't even going to do the listener's guide at one point. That happened later on, which is the cool part about creating something like this, is that it's not like you have all the ideas in the beginning and then you go out and execute. You're creating as you're creating. So as you're making it, things are coming up and being created. So one of the things that we did with this disc art was the patch that was missing trees. We actually added in trees. And if you count up the trees, there's 13 trees.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So things like that, just like, and it's kind of just like fun. That's just,
It's almost like that's for you. It's not even really, that's stuff for you. Yeah.
And at some point, it's like doing things for sport to just kind of showcase, like, oh, okay, I can, you know what I mean? Like, some of them are meaningful for sure, you know, really meaningful for sure. Like, especially like the personal pictures and stuff like that. That took a lot of time. So what I'm talking about, everyone that's listening, would be, there's, if you look on the inside of the insert, there's 13 personal pictures, meaning me and my family. There's 13 different pictures. If you add up the people in those pictures, it appears that there's 30, which is insignificant. But there's one picture that I chose specifically where my dad is behind me when I'm a young boy. And I hid him specifically because his name is Dan, my name is Dan, and my son's name is Dan. So he's the first of 3 Dans. One of 3 is 13. And now there's 31 people because he's hidden. So 31 backwards is 13, and there's 13 personal pictures. So stuff like that was almost like, it was like putting together a puzzle, you know what I mean? And I had to, which was, it just was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? It was a lot of fun to test myself and see how far I could kind of take this. And then knowing that it was for the purpose it was for, so that, you know, I mean, who knows? My sons might, you know, be 18 and be like, oh, look at it and be like, okay, cool, Dad. or they might be like, oh, wow, like, okay, like he really put a lot of thought into this, planned it, and then they'll learn a little bit about me, and then, you know, hopefully the whole work, the collection all together, they'll really look at it, and the fact that it's made for them, hopefully they'll hold that close to them, and hopefully it'll push them to do things in life, you know, that, like, you know, everyone needs outside motivation from time to time, and inspiration, and hopefully it could provide them with a little bit of that, you know. So I'm just rolling the dice, and hopefully that's what it does for them, you know what I mean? And it was all worth it. So
I think they will, you know, especially as they get older, they'll feel the intent. You know, I obviously I have some older kids, as you know,
mm-hmm.
and John and I, our motivation is for our kids as well with doing this. We look at this as almost like a similar to a photo album. You know, 50 years ago, you go up to the attic and you open up the photo album and see your family history. This to us is us creating that audio album for our kids that they, you know, at some point may listen to and be able to get our points of view or perspective on different things. And that's our whole motivation. So very similar to yours.
And that's what I love what you guys do, because you're doing exactly the same thing that I just did. You know, I mean, you're authentically expressing yourself. You know what I mean? You're talking about things about the way that you think and feel about things. And it's just a really human, true, authentic thing to, form of expression. So it doesn't matter the media. And I think that anyone that, I'm a big fan of anyone that kind of is just open and honest and, tries to, leave people or challenge people to think and leave them better than they found them. And I think that you guys are doing a hell of a job doing that. I mean, I love tuning in and listening and challenging myself to kind of think about something maybe I hadn't thought of before, or like, what is my opinion on that? So yeah, really, really cool.
Cool. I appreciate you listening. So yeah, we've got a little bit of a fun game today that we prepared. John, go ahead and.
So the concept came about. I was sitting with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying when they enter a crowd, they say hi to everybody, but they try to pick one or two people out and go for depth in the conversation to connect in a better way. And I thought that was interesting. So I started doing that more at social events, and we're already doing it now. But just to give it sort of a label, it's lean in and listen, which will lead to questions to help us learn more about the people that we're talking to. So it's lean in, lean in, lead, and learn. So, we're already basically doing that. So just, I guess the first thing that we can sort of lead into as a question from what we've leaned into and listened about is, did the songs come after you set up the sections, before you set up the sections? Let's just talk about it as a whole, how the whole came together.
Sure. Yeah. So I was, some of them, they're all written within a certain period of time. Like when I made the decision to kind of go down this path to do an album, but the whole idea about breaking into sections, a lot of the songs were actually already written. And then, I was talking to my friend Joe. We have like a real good relationship in terms of music. It's like we push each other, and he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. I used to play in his band and stuff, and just one of those people that you can probably like you two, like one of those people that you really just kind of see eye to eye with. You're part of the same tribe, and you kind of just click, and you enjoy talking and digging into topics and things on from a similar standpoint. So, I talked to somebody about this before, and we were talking, and we got off the phone. We were talking about his album that he's doing. He's coming out with one, and I was talking about this, and it just hit me. It kind of, I don't even know what it was. If it was, I don't think it was anything that either of us said. I just think that it hit me that like, wow, like, I'm starting to realize that these songs they're feeling different. Like they're feeling different from one another. And some of them felt like they were connected more, and it's kind of tough to describe, but I just started to come up with this idea. And the three themes just kind of popped out at me. And under these three themes, so, I don't want to get into it too much, but there's things that happen, with the birth of my sons. It was pretty difficult for me and my wife, and we went through some tough times. And I think that, I was trying to find a way to almost cathartically wrap that all up and wrap up everything I was feeling into this album when I was beginning to write the songs. And I think that these themes that popped out really, really hit me as the way that I was going to be able to kind of take all this, all these emotions and feelings and kind of things that we were going through, and position them in a way that as I made it was going to like help me, like help me with what I was dealing with. And so what I landed at was, the heart section. And if you listen to the songs, you may get this or may not, but my take on that, the underlying theme is that, like, people go through all different types of things. There's all different types of suffering, pain, and hardship that people go through. But in the heart is where that turns into acceptance to some level. So at some point, hopefully, when you go through something difficult, you can get to a point of acceptance, and that will take place in the heart. And then in time, you start to see the beauty in that pain and that suffering, and really look at it in a different way, where you're transitioning from more of the feeling of these bad feelings to looking at it as almost like gifts and things that you can learn from and grow from. And that's where you really, as time goes by, you start to see that the beauty in it. And then the pen for me represents more of reflections, self-reflection, examination, and really digging deep into the core of what something is. And from there, I think that beauty that you kind of, now arrived at, and you look at is, you know what, I'm gonna take something bad that happened, and I'm gonna use it to channel it for good and to channel it as motivation. And that really leads to, through reflection, into like more of an awakening and a realization that, like, I don't know what other way to say it is, that I think that pain and suffering is, it enriches existence in a way, if you look at it as something that you can learn and grow from. I mean, I don't think it's, to everyone's trying to always be happy. I was talking to, I think, Justin about this a while back. Like, there's self-help books that are, billion-dollar industry, and everyone's trying to always be happy. And it's great. I love, everyone wants to be happy. But I think that if you're always trying to run away from the things that maybe don't make you so happy and are painful or sad, then you're missing out on a lot, because I think that they can be really critical things that help you get to a deeper understanding about your existence as you go.
I think to your point too, a lot of that could be a Band-Aid, because if you don't go through the heart, time, and pen process, it's still going to be there if you don't deal with it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think maybe then it changes you, and it makes you more jaded, or, as you grow, you close yourself off to things. And I'm a fighter, man. I don't want to be closed off to things. I want to soak up every minute I have on this earth. You know what I mean? So, and especially for my sons too, when you have kids, you have a responsibility, and if you're wallowing around, you're just clouding your ability to provide them with the best life that you possibly can. So I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, it's the more we've had an opportunity to you and I to talk, we obviously didn't want to talk about everything prior to this conversation, because we wanted to have some uniqueness to this, but you've revealed some of the depth that is in here, and the transitions and the meetings of the different sections, and also the fact that there's also the reality of there's interpretation, right? So the way that you might have written it may actually end up being different than the way that somebody took away from it, right? So what we might actually take away from it may be slightly different than what your intention was initially. So
that's the beautiful part of music in general, right? I mean, it's like, because even within myself, I have, each song has probably multiple meanings to me, and I sometimes I find them out way after I write the song, which is great.
Yeah. So along those lines, let's dig into song number 4. As I indicated to you, that's probably my favorite song on the album. I have other ones that are interesting to me, but for whatever reason, I keep getting drawn to Missouri. So why don't you give us a little bit of understanding of what River Road Ramble's all about?
Okay, so in context of this, maybe we'll play a clip and people get to hear the context. But for that specific line, I grew up mainly in Yardley, Pennsylvania, and the Delaware River surrounds it, kind of hugs it. And down by the Delaware River, there's a road called River Road. So I used to go down there, even into when I was older, and fish, hang out in the creek and stuff, just to be alone, gather my thoughts, but also something I enjoy doing. So that's part of it. But then the other part of it is like a river road, kind of like, if the road is the path that you're on, river's fluid, you know what I mean? And and keeping things moving, and kind of going with just letting it take you sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're going through something, a difficult time in your life. Like, you know, you might not fully understand everything, but if you keep kind of moving forward and pushing forward and believing that things will get better, or that something new might come up down the road, and or see it on the side of the bank or something as you're going, like if you want to make that metaphor, then I think that's kind of probably where I was going with that.
Well, it's interesting because I also went to a place where, because of the section it was in, I took away from the meaning of the song being more, instead of the word Missouri, me being more a play on words like misery, because it sounded like there was loss, or there was, you know, the end of something, or, you know, some sort of, you know, issue that was connected to a relationship that, you know, that didn't work out, or something along those lines. Because it's not, you know, you're not super transparent in the lyrics there of what specifically it is. It's more of a, maybe an amalgamation of things, but that's also what I took from it. And I took it as the river road ramble as river, comma, road, comma, ramble, because you could be, to your point, on the river, it's kind of a fluid experience and you're kind of moving in a specific direction. And to some degree, the road is like that, maybe a little less fluid, but nonetheless winding, and, you know, sometimes it's a rough road, sometimes it's a smooth road. And then the ramble is a combination of things. Initially, the ramble came to me as something that you're sort of rambling on, you know, sort of in the Led Zeppelin context. But when John and I played with this a little bit, it was almost like the ramble is the dialogue, or the mental process of, you know, you've got to ramble through, whether it's podcasting or writing or whatever it is that you do to ramble, to kind of get through the quote unquote misery that I was thinking that the meaning of the song was. So
no, but you're definitely onto something there too, because, you know, home in that sense, to your point, exactly what you're kind of saying is the destination, and it's not necessarily a physical place. It's just maybe more of a state of mind, or a peace that you can arrive at.
And I think, like you mentioned before, you were saying how creativity ends up creating, you know what I mean? You show, and it's just, you know, that's, I guess, what going through things and being fluid and moving forward. One step, and you use available to you, and by showing up, that next step is created.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we play a clip, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more.
Awesome.
The past is the ghost that haunts me, babe. Nothing I can do but to be enslaved. I heard you were traveling across state lines. Now I got nothing but time. Set my love free so it never ends. Just blows right to you in Missouri winds. Trying to remember just what I miss. You're forgetting it all in St. Louis. Are we the sum of all that we've known, perfecting the parts that we've made our own? And the greatest love is waiting on the tip of my tongue, a parlor trick, been playing it since I was young. And I don't think I'll ever leave this place. You're not sure you want to come back this way. Lovely loneliness, make me your own. River road ramble, carry me home. Oh my dear, you won't be gone for long. I'll be right here like a stone. It's all in my mind. Oh my love, what are you dreaming of? I've been asleep so long, it's all in my mind. Oh, you know the sages gotta wait for a sign. Oh, you know the sages gotta wait for a sign. Just know you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Oh, you know they say I just gotta wait for a sign. The past is the ghost that haunts me, babe. Nothing I can do but to be enslaved. Lovely loneliness, make me your own. River road ramble, carry me home.
So we're back again. Like that's one of my favorites on the album, Missouri. So, and you had said that is one of the more popular songs you're seeing on Spotify, correct?
It is, yeah, actually, overwhelmingly. It's funny because on different websites or platforms, there's different ones.
That's cool.
Yeah. But overwhelmingly, that one on all of them is tends to be, I guess, maybe resonating with people because it's getting the more of the plays. Yeah, and
would you speculate on why you think that is?
I would say for all the songs in the album, and I think I definitely took the time to build and arrange them, I guess the way that I thought was most fitting for the lyrics. But that song, to me, because of the story of it, it lends itself up nicely to build. And I feel that the people that I had involved, and by the way, I had some insanely talented people working with me on this, and what I wanted to do was really play as little instruments as possible. I wanted to play guitar and sing, but I wanted to arrange things. I wanted to dictate when this came in, when this went out. So if a violin comes in or goes out, any of the instruments, I kind of wanted to have my hand in that because it was so close to me. So for this song, Missouri, I think that it just really lended itself nicely. Like even the decision to not have an instrument besides my voice and the guitar come in until like the third verse.
Sure.
And I think that if people can hang around that long, they'll get a sense that something's starting to build. And other things are starting to kind of come in, and there's that coupled with the content of the lyrics and stuff. I think it might just resonate to people because I think people, to some degree, at some point in their life, have gone through something where maybe they've been, even if it is a literal take on the lyrics, where it's you're pining over somebody, or you think that you're disillusioned a little bit. Like you think that certain things are one way, and it turns out it's not. But like we talked about before, songs can be about many different things. So like my standpoint on that song too is that it's more about just something in life that you thought was going to go a certain way, and you're kind of not willing to let go of it. and then at the end of that song, I feel like the character in it, that's, you know, the storyline is he's coming to the realization that, like, he's accepting that, you know, it's not going to be the way that I thought, and I'm going to kind of have to move on. And that's, and when you were talking about that one line specifically, River Road Ramble, carry me home, I think that's kind of that resolution for that character, if you want to call him, in this story.
All right. Well, you actually mentioned something there, and that I also wanted to touch into, which was you said you hope that they stick around to the third verse, and I noticed that a lot of the songs on the album were like 3 minutes or less, which at first I thought was interesting, because I noticed it probably more in the section of time, not necessarily because the songs were shorter there. It was just I noticed at that point. That there were several songs that were 3 minutes or less, and the feeling I got from it, honestly, was this a conscious decision to make them 3 minutes or less, because it actually made me want to hear the songs longer. Like, I wanted 30 seconds or a minute more of many of the songs, and I thought, I wonder if that was a conscious decision.
It is. So, and I'm actually a big fan of that, by the way, of leaving someone wanting more of something, like and to not wear something out. But for the time section specifically, if you took away the transition in 5, 6, 7, 8. So by the way, real quick before I answer this, transitions are created on this album, and they introduce each section. So anyone out there listening to this, there'll be a transition at the beginning of the heart, beginning of the time, and beginning of pen, and essentially they're these sounds and soundscapes that me and Raf Kucherfellow, who recorded the album, created as a jolt to the system, a palate cleanser, and an alert to the listener that they're entering into a new section. And I chose samples of Raf's music to first show his influence, but also the lyrics that I chose from his songs were specific to the themes, so and the underlying themes. So when we reference transitions as we're talking, I just want everyone to know that that's what we're talking about. So for the time section, specifically, the first 3 songs are the shortest on the album. 3 of the shortest on the album. And I did that to create, because it is the time section, to create this sense that time is fleeting, that time tends to go by fast. People always say it, you know. And I wanted to create that kind of swift moving feeling that kind of life sometimes gives you. But life also sometimes slows down, and time feels long and expansive. So the last song in the time section is by far the longest song. I think it's almost 6 minutes long, for that reason. So to also kind of, you know, give the other side of time, that it's beautiful, you know, the time that we get, appreciate it, enjoy it, stop and, you know, appreciate all the little things in life that make it great. And I think that song specifically, it's called The End of Everything. It's the 8th song on the album, is really kind of about stripping away the masks that we wear, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you know, with different people and the different roles we play, and kind of really trying to just get to the authentic you, and really be comfortable with who you are, and learn to accept and love who you are. Which is a very difficult thing, and it could take a long time, and that's probably why that song is the longest song, because it can take a very long time, and sometimes, you know, people, that's what they're searching for their whole lives, you know, so is to get to that level of comfort with themselves. And so then the other I guess icing on the cake to throw in here is that I also wanted to make something special about the time section, because it is time. So if you add up the minutes and seconds of that whole section, those 4 songs, it totals 13 minutes and 38 seconds. 13 because that's a reference to 13, and 38 because I'm 38 years old.
Nice. So we also caught that obviously not the first line in the first song of that section, but the first, you know, thing you say in the chorus is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then at the end of that section, it's the end of everything. So you start with the number 1, and you end with, you know, the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, and then you don't have it as a finite time, because it's infinite, right? Everything is infinite. So, well, the one last little point to that, this is my comment. One of the other songs that I told you is one of my favorite is number 8. And I think it's connected to some of the same things we're talking about here, which is by wanting more in song 1, 2, 3, and 5, 6, 7, by the time I got to song 4 and 8, it was like a release of that desire to want more. And that second, at least that's the way I felt about
Yeah.
it. So, you know, and so since we're just talking about these two sections right now, I figured I'd let you know that's kind of my experience with how you used specifically making the songs a specific time that would allow you to want more. And then by the time you got to the end of that section, maybe there's this buildup for me that allowed for that. So.
It was a lot of this was, a lot of things just worked out in a really strange, like almost serendipitous way. Like I was even talking to Raph about it. Like there's certain things we even did recording wise where it was like, we had to punch something in and it was like, he's like, this isn't going to work. And like the chances of it working were so slim, but it happened to work out. So even like the song selection, like I was very, very thoughtful of, I mean, I was limited by the songs in the heart had to be in that section, you know, time, pen, but within those, placing where those fell, also took like a while for me to kind of, well, it was fun, but I had to be very thoughtful about where they fell into each of those sections. So the first song on the album is for my son Danny, and that, sorry. So then the third song is for my son Dylan. So that was another thing where I was like, okay, I got to make 1 and 3, the 13 correlation. So
Sure.
so I was, you know what I mean? I was. It was cool that I was able to do that, but then I was like, okay, I had to be thoughtful with where I placed the other two songs, and for a song like Missouri, I just felt like because it ends with that person or that character coming to that place of acceptance, because the heart theme was about going from maybe a pain or suffering to acceptance, that was fitting for that to be in the 4th spot, and it happened to work out. That maybe it created that feeling when you were listening to it. And I kind of got that same feeling too. So I'm glad that you said that. But it was almost like they had to be where they were, you know, it just kind of fell into place in that way. And I think that, I'm glad that it did, because there's a lot of cases where things like that kind of just, I don't want to say fell in my lap, but it's like anything else. It's like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like, if you, like, there's people out there that like, this guy called me, about 2 months ago, and he was like, hey, you know, because in my industry, he was looking for if I knew of anything, a job or anything. So it's like, actually, yeah, you know, something popped up, and you know, I'll connect you with you know, my director of sales and my manager, and see what happens. So I did, and you know, looks like it, you know, might be working out for the guy, and he went on an interview, and he called me and he said, man, like I feel like it was just like fate or like meant to be. And I had to stop him, and I was like, no, it wasn't. You picked up the phone and you decided to call me,
Right,
and ask if there's an opportunity. And I'm sure you did that with other people. And the more you do that, and the more you strive to do positive things, the more positive things will happen to you.
sure.
You know? And so I think that it's a loose correlation, but I feel that something like that happened here, where I just kept pushing, and I was testing the limits of my creativity, and really giving everything that I had, because I knew, because it was so special for me to do for them. So I think that within that, yeah, there's things that I planned out, but then there's also things that just kind of came together because I was putting in the work, you know?
And John's got a question for you, and he's chomping at the bit, but I can't believe that you just said the word fate, because, you know, you listening to your album the first 2 times, I actually started posing the question in my mind, because one of the songs has the word fate in it, talks about it. And
it tells you not to dare believe in it, though, right?
Correct. But here's the thing: there's always this contrast of either you believe in fate or you believe you control your own destiny. And I actually started pondering the question: is why can't both of those exist at the same time?
They can, yeah.
and I never, you know, really thought about that until that question was, you know, came out of listening to the work that you created here. So anyway, so it's interesting that you brought that up. So I know John's got a question for you about time.
Sure.
Well, I first want to get to another clip soon, so we'll let you pick the clip. And Justin maybe was thinking Entropy because it has a video that you can connect people to. But in 5, 6, 7, 8, one of the questions I had, and before I do that, Let me lean in first before I lead with the question. Do you want to prep 5, 6, 7, 8 at all for the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So with that, that on the album, musically is the most loose, and also lyrically is the most kind of straightforward. It's just like a little, I guess, allegory about, being young, everything, the world out in front of you, everything open to you. And then kind of more of a cautionary tale of like, don't let yourself grow old and, be chasing something that is not permanent or fleeting, like something that doesn't have any meaning behind it. Maybe like money or things. Those things are great and they help provide for, your family. And, I'm all about doing that and making sure that my sons and my wife have what we need. But at the end of the day, that's not what's important. What's important is finding things and people that you love, things you love to do, and people that you love to spend your time around, and really trying to better yourself each day and give your all to. So it was just a little snapshot of trying to get that across.
Well, I think you did that completely, because that's exactly what I got from the song, to the point that I didn't even have to ask the question, because you answered it. Because I just was about to say, what advice would you give the person in that song? And you clearly must have expressed it well, because I not only came to the conclusion that you were intending, I actually asked myself the question that you wrote the song about, which was to answer what's important. So,
and I guess that, like, with fate, whether you believe or not, fate exists. I still think, and that's fine, because it doesn't matter if you do or you don't. Mm-hmm. What does matter is that the things that you want in life, and the life that you want, life that you maybe envision having, like, you can make happen to some degree, but you have to work hard at it and take tangible steps and put in the effort and devote your mind share to those things. Because if you just let time go by and are expecting things to fall in your lap, I would say more often than not, you're going to be disappointed.
Right. And that is the danger of fate, thinking that you are.
And yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with that, for sure.
What song would you like?
Yeah, I mean, would you want us to set up a lead into the video, or would you like us to play a different song at this point in that section?
Well, we're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8, so let's just do that one, man. And and just to set this up as well, what you guys are going to hear in the beginning is one of those transitions. So it's kind of cool for people to be able to hear this. So this is leaving kind of the heart section, going into the time section. You're going to hear, I don't even know how to describe it. We'll call them transitions. I already kind of talked about them, and you'll hear that going into the song, and really kind of setting the tone. And what's nice is you'll get to hear Missouri, the song right before this. So you'll get to hear, the difference, between Taste of the Heart section into where the time section will kind of take the listener.
Okay, great.
Well, the loveliest thing that I ever did see was a young man dreaming of what he could be. He was searching for love, he was searching for gold, he was waiting for life to fill up his soul. And it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 on your door and you cannot turn it away. 5, 6, 7, 8, don't you dare believe in fate if it is not with you today. Thing that I ever did see was an old man crying in misery. He had found all the gold, he had bought lots of things, but he never had a love or a family. And it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, time is kicking down your door and you cannot turn it away. 5, 6, 7, 8, don't you dare believe in fate if it is not with you today.
All right, we're back from listening to 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, I had talked to you a little bit about this, Dan, and I used the word loose when we talked about it as well. What was maybe some of the musical influences that you had? That, I mean, some of it comes through already. I'm not going to say the names. I'll let you talk about it. But I also think there are other influences on this album that, whether you're conscious of it or not, really, really came through. And in this song, you had mentioned one particular song, and I think when you said it, I was like, wow, that does sound, it sounds very similar and very, very influenced by that.
Oh, so yeah, for 5, 6, 7, 8, at the point when I was so I had written the song, it was already written, and I was starting to add things to it and figure out how I was going to arrange it. And at that time, I was driving around a lot in the car with my son, and we were listening to, he was obsessed with Yellow Submarine by the Beatles.
Right.
So I was like, you know what, this would be cool if I took that approach. So sure. For the piano that's in there and the horns that come in,
the horns for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And even the drum beat is very like playful kind of. I wanted to create that feel for him because 5, 6, 7, 8, even in when it was stripped down bare, just me and the guitar, it was the one that he always wanted me to put on. So sure. It just happened at the same time that he was like obsessing over this Yellow Submarine song and always wanted to play that as well. So I was like, you know what, like I got to take inspiration from that song and you know, find a way to put some of that, have some of that come through in 5, 6, 7, 8, which was a lot of fun to do, you know. And the cool part about that too is that like it was named something else in the beginning. It was called, you know, when I first wrote it, sometimes I write a song title down just at the top of the page when I first write something, just to keep like almost like a place marker for me to reference it.
Sure. And
then I never go back. You know, I had to go back sometime and really think about, okay, like what is this song going to be called? So even the name 5, 6, 7, 8 came from that, like that whole kind of, I think isn't that the thing, like people lead into dance, like with music, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. With, you know, dance, it's 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yep.
So I just thought something playful, to name it that wasn't heavy at all. But then also it's the 5th song. So 5, 6, 7, 8 are the songs in the time section. So it just right. It all worked out nicely that I was able to do something kind of for him and then work it back into the whole concept with the title.
You were dropping mind bombs.
I get to watch John's face as his eyes go, whoa.
Oh, dude, you don't even understand. Like some of the stuff about sharing it and stuff, like the 13 things, like there's a lot of types of people out there, and certain people probably look at me like I'm crazy when I'm talking to them about it. I'm like, I swear I'm not crazy. I just was, you know, just trying to test my creativity a little bit and, you know, like do something special.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to your initial question of musical influences, I mean, it's all over the board. And I think first, when I'm like when I did something like this, I didn't listen to any music. The only music that I actually did listen to is, so the guy that recorded me is, his name is Raphael Cucciafello, and he's in an amazing band called Hezekiah Jones. And they got their own mystical kind of shit going on with the way that his vision for his music and the things that he has buried in his art. And I think that's probably part of the reason why he wanted to be a part, like, you know, agreed to be a part of it. I was really lucky that he wanted to, and it was just a great working relationship. And he kind of, the type of person he is, allowed me to do this, to kind of stretch my limits, because most people, if I was working with, they would be scratching their heads, be like, wait, why do you need to do that? Why does this need to be here? And he was just open to everything. So I actually have to share a lot of the credit with the way that it came out, the way that I was able to be so kind of meticulous, mm-hmm. was because I was working with somebody that is wired like that, and that like is a why not kind of a person when you get to those decisions to try to do additional things. So, but for inspiration, a lot of my inspiration, the majority of it doesn't even come from music. It just comes from, you know, life and everything, and all the other things that there's so many other things outside of music that you draw from, because it depends on what you want to do with music too. Like everything I kind of do tends to be very, whether it's personal or cerebral, it's more of a thoughtful expression. I'm not very good at, I'm not even talented enough to write something that doesn't have a lot of meaning to me behind it. So I need to kind of go in that direction, or you know, I feel the need to go down that road. So, you know, tons of music I look at it like I think I was talking to you about it before, it's like a big cauldron. Like you just throw it all and you mix it all up, and it's from all different eras. Right. And like, yeah, it's like, I would never, I never set out to be like, I'm going to write a song that sounds like this person, or I'm going to write a song that sounds like this. It really doesn't go like that. It's very few and far between. And I would say the only song on the album that I almost did write in a form or for sport in that sense would be like Beg, Steal, and Borrow, where I was trying to write within a kind of a form, you know, like this older kind of Motown-y, yeah, new take on it. But other than that, it's just kind of, I get a feeling. I'll start with the guitar and get a feeling from the chords, and then I'll work through that feeling and find the right words that that feeling's giving me. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know, a couple influences or people that I've listened to, you know, like all the classics, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Rolling Stones. But then there's a lot of new music that I truly love, and Hezekiah Jones, for example, I love his music. I think it's phenomenal, and it definitely seeps in there, right? And it's going to come out at some point, sure, in some form or fashion. But even other artists like Shel Silverstein, as a kid, had a huge influence on me. I was a huge Shel Silverstein guy as a little boy. Like, they're all my favorite books. Light in the Attic, in the Attic, all that stuff, you know? Gotcha. Yeah. And that, because I was even, that almost inspired me to draw. But I feel that now looking back, like the way he used to rhyme and like the way he played with the English language is something that must have stuck with me, because I really enjoy that in the songwriting process, like rhymes within rhymes, you know, inside the lines, and different rhyme schemes where, you know, the first line rhymes with like the seventh line, you know, stuff like that. So there's a lot of intricate rhyming patterns and things that I like to kind of experiment with and employ. And then another one, like a visual artist, which I kind of relate to this work in a way, would be like an MC Escher. Okay. I loved all his art and how he interconnected things. So although I didn't do that visually where there's things interconnecting, maybe I did it, you know, in a more, maybe sonically or whatever you want to describe it. Maybe just like from I don't know, a philosophical standpoint or something, I kind of made things interconnect. Sure. So it's stuff like that like, you know, I could, when I think about it, yeah, like, you know, kind of comes from all over the place, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the other, I mean, you definitely, all those bands, you can definitely feel and hear influences there. There's a little bluegrass in there. You know, some people might think it's country. I kind of feel like some more of it sounds more bluegrassy than it does country at times. But I even hear, like, on the End of Everything, to me, that's more of an alt rock sort of you know, airborne toxic event type of song. And then Alpha and Omega is like, to me, is like the Shins, you know. I mean, it's very similar to a Shin song, you know. So there's alt rock in there too, which I know you've listened to as well. So anyway, it's all coming through. I just was curious on what those were for you.
Yeah, I think that, you know what it is. It's you just have to follow, like at least I go purely on instinct. So when I pick up a guitar and start writing, I just kind of strip away everything, and it has to come from an authentic place of me expressing myself. And it's natural that the things that I've listened to and, music wise are going to come out in certain ways. But really, I think it's one of the things I think I could probably hang my hat on a little bit is that when you listen to the album, I don't think there's a discernible like formula that I'm working with in terms of songwriting. I feel like I switch it up. Some songs are, even the form of them, some songs don't have a chorus. They're just a couple verses and they build a certain way and they have a certain sonic feel. And then other ones have a completely almost different approach. I mean, it's all relatively based on centered around the acoustic guitar, I guess. But I feel that it's at least not something where you put it on and once you hear the first song, you get a sense of like, oh, every other song is going to kind of be in a similar vein. I think it bounces around, and I think that's because I was trying to serve each song individually, and really kind of unearth and excavate what I wanted all the instruments to come together to really put an exclamation point on that feeling that I wanted to get across.
And I think for Beg, Steal, and Borrow, you hit the mark, as your attempt to, try a formatted song or create something. And I think that came across really well, and I think people will enjoy that. I also like that, somehow it worked out that, we saw this as a piece of art and we referenced it to being like in a museum, and then some of the influence for your music ends up being an artist, which really just comes through with everything. So with that artist, let's move into what they use, which is the pen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we caught a few different things, and I, this is where I think color started to really, I think I texted you after I was stuck on I'm Gray, going, man, you really got a lot of gray in this album.
I know, it's favorite color.
and then you told me it was your favorite color. So, and obviously you said there was red's another one that comes through as well. And the more you listen to it, the more you see those. So, yeah. So the question that we have around Gray is, what's the line? I'm gray in
Under Your Love.
Wait, we got the lyrics right in front of us, so let's just get them.
I'm gray in the shade of your love.
Shade of your love.
Yeah. Which in first that kind of sounds like, gray being a neutral color in the shade of your love might be construed as being something, either negative or because it's sort of on the blackest hue.
But not on a hot day.
But not on a hot day, and if gray's your favorite color, then that's got to be a good thing, right?
It is and it isn't, because gray is the balance of light and dark. Okay. So
nice.
So that's I think that's part of the ethos of the album is that there's the good and the bad of life but it's all beautiful, right? I mean, it all makes things worthwhile. And it doesn't matter what it is, you just work each day to better yourself and try to grow and learn from the person that you were the day before. And if you continue to do that, you can look at gray as a positive color. And it is my favorite color, by the way. So one of the other things that is kind of interesting with the color gray is that red is the only real color that's not on the grayscale that's used on the album, because that's my son Danny's favorite color. So I was important to me to kind of make that pop and highlight that. But with the gray and the white, which are the other two kind of prominent colors on it, if you look at the album jacket, it has 6 panels on it, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The insert has 16.
Okay.
So 16 plus 6 is 22, right? And then the listener's guide is 4 panels.
Right. So
that's 26. If you divide 26 in half, that's 13. You have 13 for the light, 13 for the dark.
Oh, there you go. That's what we're talking about. Like, this is the type of stuff that this is our wheelhouse, man. This is exactly what we love. And hopefully everybody else loves this stuff too. Cause I texted you also, and kind of going back a little bit here. And as obviously at the end of song 6, you've got the the sounds of the lion and the sounds of the crow, and obviously that is crow versus lion, kind of coming through there, so there's a lot of little sort of hidden eggs, if you will, throughout this whole thing. That's great, and some of it, like you said in the listener's guide, you're upfront about, and some of it you're going to have to discover on your own. So,
the one thing I like is when you take something and you say, if you, because the truth is, if you take situations and if you do something with it, you'll get something out of it. And that's what you keep showing time after time with everything we're talking about, is that if you just take one step further, if you just put things together, there's going to be something there for you.
I'm glad you took that away from it, because I think that even if that wasn't what I intended, it makes a lot of sense. Just with anything, right? You know, that if you put more time into something and you dive deeper, you're going to get something more out of it, hopefully.
And not only something out of it, you're actually coming back to similar themes. So yes, you can get something out of it. You can get many things out of it. But if you keep digging, you can actually, keep finding out that you keep coming back to whatever your truth is. And that truth can change, but it just continues to mold and shape and strengthen, what you believe and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to feed in your life.
Yeah, well said.
So, and I don't think John and I really probably have had enough time to really dig into the pen section, because like you said, it's sort of one section. Not only does it chronologically lead into it, but it emotionally leads into a deeper and deeper place, as you articulated earlier, from acceptance to beauty, to being able to translate into that via the pen into something, and so why don't you pick something you want to talk about this section, or a song, or just in general what the overall intention was, or a little bit of both?
Okay. Red Ring. That's an interesting one. So, my son Danny, we were sitting on the couch, and his favorite toy for the longest time was just this red ring. And I say this in the listener's guide, and he used to say to me, like, red ring, and I'm like, red ring again? Like, you want it again? Like, oh my gosh, it's the only thing you're playing with. There's always toys around, and you keep picking this red ring, which is great. I don't care, whatever he wants. So I was sitting on the couch with him, and I was strumming that chord progression. Just this is the first thing that kind of happened when I was doing it. And he asked for the red ring. And for whatever reason, I was just going back. The main chord of the verses is the E chord, and I'm just hammering on like a G note. And when he said that, I, like a second after, I just was like, went to the G and to the D, and that's the chorus. Red ring again. And I wrote like a halo around my head right after that. So I wrote that chorus right there, sitting with my son, who was asking me for the red ring. And I literally put him to bed, went downstairs, and wrote all the verses right there on the spot that night. It was awesome. It was just like one of those things that just felt really kind of cool, that like just something, it's like this thing between me and him, you know what I mean? And I think in that song too, it was a lot of like, I don't know how people are going to take it, but my take on it was also like just whatever in life, like kind of whatever life throws at you, whatever frustrations or maybe anger you're feeling, to channel that in a negative way is never going to lead to something good. So just kind of throw it back at the world and just say, give me all you got. You know what I mean? We're willing to take it, and me and him together, we'll work through anything, and I'll help him the best I can as he grows. And, just, it was kind of more of a love letter to him in a weird way, but it doesn't come across that way maybe when you listen to it. But that was my intention, just kind of me and him versus the world kind of a thing.
That's pretty cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, for sure. So why don't we go ahead and let the listeners enjoy that, and we'll come right back.
Great.
Providence, the name of my rifle. Have you heard the one about my last rival? Enemy, the opposite of me. You can drown in the fire or burn in the sea. Red ring again. everything is great. Oblivion, hold the door for me. Who you love is all you own, and who you love is free. Red ring again, like a halo around my head. Red ring again, like a halo around my head. Providence, the name of my Bible. Have you heard the one about my last disciple? Enemy, the reflection of me. You can show a man the light, can't teach him how to see. Red ring again, like a halo around my head. Red ring again, like a halo around my head. Red ring again, like a halo around my head. Red ring again, like a halo around my head.
All right, we're back from listening to Red Ring, and again, to your point, you're looking at the lyrics here, listening to the song. You know, like you said, it's not really super connected to specifically a love letter, but at the same time, there are things in there that, you know, who you love is all you own, and who you love is free. I mean, you're talking about that. Once you know the context of the song, it's there, you know. But I think it would be maybe a little hard to uncover without a little bit of understanding. So I appreciate you sharing that, because it's definitely made the song a little different for me, because it has been one of those songs that, you know, of course, I'm always looking for the 17 different layers that exist in a song that may not even be there. It drives my wife crazy. But at the same time, it's what I obsess over. So by having a little context, maybe you've saved me a few hours of trying to uncover something that's not there.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem.
So again, and I really love, as I said to you before in this section, Alpha and Omega. It's just a very it's a different sounding song than the rest of the songs on the album.
Yeah.
And it's unique in that way. And I'm such an alt, and that it kind of leans towards that direction, at least, you know, from a listener's perspective. Like I said, to me, it sounds a little bit like the Shins, even though I don't really follow the Shins, but it just reminded me of them. And so it's just one of those songs that I really grabbed.
So I'll give you a little, like, I guess, nugget on that one too. So one of the things I played around with there was this idea that, like, people sometimes put definitive measures on things or absolutes, right? So if the last word of every line is, and I don't know if I'm going to get them in order right now, but nothing, something, anything, everything. So it's just this idea of, you know, people putting this limit on things, and the idea there was just to kind of convey that, like, listen, keep your mind open and free. Like, all these things, all these beliefs and dogmas and things that are out there, just my personal advice is to just take it all in. You know what I mean? Take all in everything life has to offer, and develop your own, you know, your own thoughts on things, and don't let it be dictated by an outside source.
It's amazing that I never really spent any time with the lyrics on that song because I just like the way the song sounds. But I also have found, and you know, as you know, I listen to a lot of music, a lot of different
Yeah.
music, and it's not a coincidence. The songs that I generally gravitate towards, once I decide, okay, I'm going to move past the appeal of the first layer, I tend to find myself being very like, oh, I didn't really see that lyric. So now that I even know, I mean, that is a philosophy that I subscribe to all the time. So the fact that I didn't really see it right in front of me, you know, I was going to get there eventually, but I think that's probably underlying. I was probably drawing me to the song without me being conscious of it. So,
yeah. And I think, well, another cool part about that I want to put in there too is like there's a chord in there, and that it's the same chord progression played the entire song, and I don't even know what the chord is, man. Like I couldn't even tell you if someone asked me. I just slid up like this. It was a C chord into the same form up higher in the guitar, and it had this really kind of eerie, dissonant feeling. So Kylie, the girl that plays violin on the whole album and does all the female backing vocals, was doing, after the second verse, was doing a solo section there, and we recorded it, and she's like, can I do that again? And when I was listening to it, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. Like, it was crazy how these musicians were so talented. They just kept, after our conversation, really nailing what I was going for. Cause I'm not like a music guy. So I'm not even able to explain like what notes you need to hit or anything. I was talking to them in way of feeling, and I was giving them like word associations. So I'd use words like, I want this to sound nostalgic and sad, but then also have, you know, like I'd go on for a little bit. And that's the way that I communicated what I wanted them to do. So she hit this note, and she was like, oh, it was kind of like wonky. Like it was like this dissonant note in the middle. And I said, we have to keep it in there. I was like, cause it happened right at the time it's on that chord, that strange chord that I was playing. And it does, like, I love that about music, where even if it's not technically the right note or whatever you want to call it, if it creates a feeling or like maybe a little bit of uneasiness or something, I love those moments in music. So that one was really cool. And then the other cool part about that, what she did, is the end. So the end of that song has like it just breaks open into this, like there's this pedal steel guitar, and there's the violin and the trumpet, and it just kind of like fades off after, you know, like a minute. What she plays on the violin there, I said, I want it to sound like a DJ scratch. And that's what she did on the violin, which is really, really cool.
That's cool. Well, good. Well, why don't you dive a little bit into, you know, sort of as you talked about the progression of this album for you, and what did that ultimately, you know, lead to for you?
Yeah. So the way that when listening to it, the intention was that, not that it's light in the beginning, but it's going to be lighter, maybe where the end feels a little bit more like it's diving into the writer, my psyche, as you're going. So it's kind of getting to this place where there's these things, these emotions, these feelings, these thoughts that are being addressed in the beginning, and really kind of cutting down and digging down to the core of them, and getting to this point, as I said before, where the pen is kind of more symbolic of an awakening. You know, you've gone through the acceptance process. You've recognized, you know, that there is value in some of those, the pain and the sadness that you experience, and getting to a point where now you've crossed over a little bit, and you're in a much better place, and view the world and the situations that you go through in a different way that you did before. And you would never be able to view them this way if you hadn't gone through that. So that's what the pen section is really doing. And I also set it up, and the cool part, and I think John and me were talking on a break about this, is that, you know, the different sections can be unto themselves. You can listen to them unto themselves. So if you can do that, then you can mix and match the sections, and you can listen to the album with the pen section first, and maybe the heart section second, and the time section third, ending with the title track, and getting a different feeling of the album, which is kind of something that was cool for me. Like as I was starting to realize that, was like, wow, like, okay, like now there's like, if you're going to buy into and really dig into what we tried to make here, then that's just an added thing that you can kind of go back and listen to, and maybe it'll hit you a different way, and maybe you'll learn something more. It's kind of like what you guys do. Like, really, I think your show is and what you guys talk about is you're really trying to, challenge people to learn something more about themselves. And you share your own opinions, like I share my own opinions on my songs. But when you decide to share something, you really want to connect with people and challenge them to think about some of these things, because it can be very helpful for them. That's the more you reflect on anything, the more you learn the spots you need to grow, and maybe you learn the things that you're good at too. And, so a lot of it is just about growing and challenging yourself, challenging whoever you're sharing it with to think about things that are that all humans kind of experience and kind of like the human condition. So
I think 1,000 pages really pulls that all together really well.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. And that's another one that people are, I was surprised at. You never know, it's hard to be objective when you do something like this. And I'm so involved in it and so close to it that it's hard to really gauge what people might think about certain things. But that's one that people tended to, the people that I was sharing it with tended to give me a lot of positive feedback on. And I don't know why. Maybe that's the reason, John. Maybe it's because they felt that when they listened to the album, that was some type of resolution that after listening, that people arrived at, considering the whole scope of the work.
Yeah, because when you look at it, it's like it's really about, and the words can change for each person, but it's all the things your heart goes through over time that you learn about yourself or life. That's your 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take a little bit of a different spin on it, and I think you brought it up before, which is, the pen that is all about the awakening portion of it. But I mean, everyone's going to have challenges. Everyone's going to have things related to the heart, positive and negative, and it's all about then what do you do with it? And everyone's going to have time. We all have to go through time, and it's all finite and all those things. The question becomes, when you put those things together, what actions do you take? And in this case, you pick up the pen and you write. In our case, we hit record and we talk. So what are you doing to process or get to and through that awakening to the next space? And I'm sure I kind of think I know the answer to this question, but I know I want to answer the question already for myself, which is our pen, which is this podcast, has been something that has helped me personally awaken and deal with things and process things instead of just putting them in the closet and hoping that they go away, which they don't.
Yeah.
So I guess I think that I've become a better person because of that, and I guess ultimately my question to you is, how has that translated into your life, that awakening?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, having gone through some things that we went through with our kids and are still going through, and we'll do for as long as we live, it's just gotten me to a place where it's really about managing yourself and maybe your expectations, of what you think life's going to be, and strip that away and start saying, like, life's going to be what it's going to be, and I have to act accordingly. Like, I have to decide how I want to be, how I want to act, and how I want to carry myself, and what I want my mindset to be. And I think this whole thing is, as I was working through some things, on a personal level, the art was kind of mirroring and helping me arrive to this space. So it really ended up being almost like a cathartic thing, and this, for me, it just happened to be this is the way I wanted to express it with music. But maybe next time it's, something different, and I think that for everybody, it's not about, you don't have to do something. You don't have to create something or be an artist or like, to your point, have a podcast or whatever it is. They could arrive at the same conclusion just by challenging themselves to think deeper. And maybe it is like going out and sometimes I relate it to the game of golf or something. Like I get a similar thing when I play golf that I do playing music, man. And it's this piece or this place that you can go to, whether it's in your mind or a physical place, or whether it's hanging out with your kids, that you can allow yourself to really dig into the things that are challenges or obstacles in your life, and getting to the core of them, and getting to a place where again, you take all of that, all the things that can be perceived as maybe negative or bad, and flipping it around and channeling it for good and positivity and growth. And I think that's, I don't want to get into the point of life here, but I mean, what else is there? You know what I mean? Like, because otherwise you're just allowing time, you're allowing your existence to just happen, and you're like almost like a passive observer. Don't be a passive observer. Take hold of your life, take action, and do the things that make you happy, and surround yourself with the people that you love. And you're not always going to be perfect, and you're going to come up short, and you're going to make stupid mistakes, but as long as you can continue to learn from them, and you're committed to getting better, that's what this represented for me. Kind of the culmination of that mindset, or the commitment maybe for me to say, and I've always kind of been like that, but maybe really getting a more in-depth understanding of myself and my situation, and making the commitment to being the best husband I could be, being the best father I could be, the best friend, or whatever it is, the best son, on and on and on.
Yeah, Justin and I, we've been talking a lot about, really working on who we are versus what we do. And we feel that focus on who we are can have a positive impact on everything we do. So
yeah,
that's a great way to be. Okay, so it just so happens we made it to song 13. 13 happens to be my wife's favorite number. That's wife, not wives.
How did we move to Utah all of a sudden?
And we see in the picture that it's you and your wife on the CD, and we see the heart, the time, and the pen come together in one piece of art.
Yeah. So 13 actually is my favorite number too, and this is another correlation that I'm making here with the number 13. It always is going to signify something important when it appears on the album, and not much more important than her to me. At the end of the day, we've been together for a very long time, going on almost 17 years. Been through a lot together, especially with kind of what I referenced before, with having gone through some difficult times, and maybe some ahead with our sons. Just getting to a place where I wanted to say kind of a note to her about, hey, listen, we've been able to handle what's been thrown at us so far, and I wouldn't want to do it with any other person, and we're in a good spot, and everything's going to be all right. And we've created a great lives for ourselves, and we have two beautiful young boys, and I just wanted to cap off the album with that to her, because I thought it was fitting, because it's me and her in it together, and it just couldn't end it another way for me. And the fact that kind of my boys were setting up the album, being in the first section there, and finishing with something kind of more directed at her, just felt that, for me getting to the spot that I've gotten to anyway, with what I'm talking about, like getting through a lot of these things, and I still will continue to deal with them, but the person that's been there with me the whole time, and helped me along, and hopefully I've helped her too, has been her. So
that's what you said, 1 and 3 are your kids' song, and that makes 13. But it's even more powerful to think that song 13 is about you and your wife, and that correlation between the 1 and the 3 becoming 13, just really brings in the whole aspect of you guys as a family.
Exactly. The 1 and the 3 together being 13, really, if you look at it, equaling the last song, essentially. Yeah.
So we're gonna play that song here in a second, but why don't you once again tell everybody where they can get the music, where they can see the video, and anything else you want to share with the audience?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, guys, thank you so much for the conversation. I learned a lot actually from it too. You guys brought up things that I hadn't thought of in certain ways, which was really an interesting and fun conversation to have. So, I love what you guys do, and I really appreciate you having me on.
No, thank you for making the art. Thanks for making the time for us here. And, I guess we leaned in and we led into certain things, and it led us to some learnings. And we definitely learned even more about you, more about the music that you made. And we can't thank you enough. We appreciate what you've done here. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And if for anyone out there that wants to find the album again, Bandcamp again would be the place where you can get all the downloadable art. That is crowversuslion.bandcamp.com. I like Instagram a lot. It's like almost like an extension of the art. And what I did was, when I created the account, it was almost like a running record of the recording process, but also snapshots and things done from more of an artistic standpoint, because that platform kind of allows for that. So that's at crow_vs_lion. And then again, you can, anywhere where you kind of consume music, it should be up on like iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, things like that. We have a Facebook too, so just search us there. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, feel free to reach out. Again, I get my email before, dangallagher1319@gmail.com. I'm totally open to anyone that wants to reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk to, share the album with, whatever you want. And if you do want to get a physical copy too from me, I personalize each one. So there's a bunch of other things that actually come with a physical copy outside of just the downloadable art that's evolved as I've been sharing the album, where it's gotten more intricate.
Sure.
I just can't help myself, I guess. I just keep...
Yeah. By the way, I like I said, I appreciate the Sun Tzu picture that was personalized there. I like that.
Oh yeah, well yeah. So just for a note out there for everybody, Justin and me worked together, and I learned a great deal from you, man, and you were far and away the most influential person I've ever worked with. I mean, even though you managed me, it almost felt more like we were working side by side at points, and
yep.
And from a professional standpoint, allowed me to grow a lot, but also as a person. So one of the things that Justin introduced me to is Sun Tzu's Art of War. So I just a little nod to our friendship there. I took a picture of that on a Polaroid and included it in his personalized copy. So things like that I'm starting to include. So if anyone is interested, I'd love to have a conversation or be able to find a way to get you the music. And if you can't afford it, we'll work something out.
And one last plug before we roll into the song. Where can they see the video?
Oh, the video. So there'll be a link on my Instagram in the bio, but also on Facebook. It's posted on the Crowverse Line Facebook page. So those two spots, and they can actually just search it. You Google Crowverse Line Entropy. The video will pop up.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks again, Dan. And we'll close the show off with The Heart, The Time, and The Pen.
Supposed to be and who I thought I was. The truth we seek is the joke that we find, so I'm laughing just because. I'm free to think but slaves to time, with thoughts of promise and of doubt, and me and you are bound to fall in love. Let the light go out. So hurry, 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 there's something new here for you to bury inside of you. Worry, worry, worry if it's all true. follow you into the fade. And I'm asleep and dying to wake up in a bed that I had made. And how far down the road we'll go, now one of us can tell. There's a light somewhere there, it's got me in its spell. It's the heart, the time and the pen that keeps me coming back here again. Like the thunder, lightning